Hey everybody, Preston Flat back again with my former Mormon missionary companion, considering the profound teachings of Buddha and how they may or may not relate to other traditions in the world and like thought. But first I have to say, from the world headquarters, from the catacombs, and indeed from deep within the bowels of Preston Flat, me and my former missionary companion, we welcome you. And thanks for joining us in this discussion or this consideration. Today we're considering this. I was listening to a video, a tape online by the Thai Buddhist celebrated teacher, master, Ajahn Chah, and he was talking about this thing called just this much, and that it's possible to experience the sense impressions as just this much. I guess it's in quotes, you know. It's almost isn't a smooth way to say it, but it's like just this much. So we're going to consider that and how that may or may not match the Christian idea of setting up a yoke, an actual yoke, in which the person that sits in devotion gathers two or three, two or more points actually, a point on the right, a point on the left, and having gathered these 2 points, they then experience very much the same as what a surfer would experience when the surfer surfs a wave, or a skateboarder skateboards down a sidewalk. Why would it even be remotely similar? Because just like they have a foot on one side, a foot on the other, and then they sink their center of gravity down between the 2 points, so too does the person that sits in devotion. You know, there is that scripture that pretty much everybody has heard of, that where two or three are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Or where two or more. And usually they think, well, gee, we want God in the midst of us, so we got to get two or more believers to get together. If we can just do that, then God will be in the midst of us. And I'm not going to say that doesn't work, and I don't want to slight that in any way either. But there's also this way that if you can gather two or more points, one on the right, one on the left, then the place where you surf is right between them, in the straight and narrow place between right and left. You sit there and you surf that place. And then as you surf it, these sense impressions arise, as they always do. They continually parade up before you in new ways that have never ever occurred from the beginning of time. I mean, if you take a deep breath now, for example, you'll realize that the air particles that you just sniffed in have never been breathed in by you in that combination before. And that you have different food in you now, your hair is a different length. All of life is new. It's never happened exactly in this combination before. Yes, you could say it's impermanent. People like to say that because it arrives anew, but then it passes away. And the arriving anew, that's birth, when it first forms. And then when it passes away, that's death. And you can literally surf the place between birth and death. If you can set up this kind of a scale and hold but not grasp as the world presents itself to you. How do you hold and not grasp? By simply surfing this middle place. Because the world will arrive in new ways, right? And you'll tend to lean toward what you want. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And this is also where surfing comes in. You'll lean toward what you want and away from what you don't want. But if you're surfing this balance point, you can feel at the very soonest arisal, of the going outward from this place out into the external world. How would you do that? Well, you'd set up a scale. And a simple example is as you sit there, assuming you're sitting down, just you have two sitting bones, right, that meet the chair where you're sitting. And if you lean one way, you can feel one more than the other. Or if you lean the other way, you can feel that one more than the other. But it's possible as a sport to literally surf without a surfboard, to literally feel both sitting bones evenly. And then, as a game, as an enjoyable, fun game, as this world does present itself to you, in new combination after new combination, each one asks this question of you: lovest thou this place more than these? Or as they say in mysticism, lovest thou me more than these? Because the word me connotes, is that the right word? The idea that the kingdom of God is within you. So, like if I'm going to give my heart to God, who is going to give their heart to God? I am. So the words I am and me and like that, it's not to take anything away from the ultimate power, but it's to say that, yeah, I'm devoted to the one real, to that which is real, and in that devotion, that place of devotion is in my heart. And so what if the whole world parades up? Each one is like a test of this devotion. Will you hold to this one good thing? Will you choose this? Or will you choose to go out into the world toiling and spinning and seeking after one thing in the world or another, and take a grand tour of the universe, spinning out, getting caught up in the things of the world and scarcely able to settle back down again? Well, how could you possibly settle back down? Well, maybe you could set up a yoke like this. You gather two or more points wherever you are and just feel them evenly. And know that the one that has gathered the points, since you've picked one on one side and one on the other, the one that has gathered those points rests in the middle. Not even so much as a thing, but as like a space between things. So how does this relate to just this much? Well, as you sit there and surf this place, you will, inside, you'll have like a internal representation as all these sights, sounds, feelings, and everything parade up before you. And it will feel like there's more on one side or more on the other. And so literally you're like a scale and you're weighing the sense impressions as they arrive before you. And at first it may seem like it's more of a physical thing, because it is true that you can modify your physical posture steadily to always feel both sitting bones evenly. But actually, the more you practice, you realize that this really teaches you how to move the mind. So that's I don't know if it's the ultimate, but for example, you sit here like this, right? Feeling both sitting bones evenly, but if you put your mind on that one, isn't it true that you feel that one more than the other one now? Or if you put your mind on that one, and you feel that one more. So what you do is you set up this kind of a scale, and you enjoy this game of surfing the presentations of life and always trying to hold to this place. Not even so much by grabbing on and trying to wrestle your way to this sweet spot, no, but by release. Like if you're too attached to one thing, you release it like that. Or if you're too attached to something else, you release that. So literally, that's how you can do it without grasping, without holding on to the external world. So basically, And so when you learn this yoke, this way of surfing without a surfboard with the physical body like this, then you learn that all you have to do is move your mind in such a way as to be in the place that you can find between opposites, for example, between the opposites of right and left. So you can actually put your mind in that sweet spot, and that means in spite of the physical posture, you're not even limited to the body. But you learn the lesson this way, find this straight gate, and surf, and you'll feel the sense impressions on all sides, and that's what you surf, because basically, in the beginning, you convert it all to kinesthetic, to feeling. So here's how it works. If there's a loud sound, does that sound change the kinesthetic, the feeling of where you are? And if so, just adjust the body posture in such a way as to surf and hold to the sweet spot in spite of that sound. If it's a smell, same thing. You still adjust the physical posture. If it's a sight, similarly, you adjust the physical posture. If it's a taste, something really bad. I love durian fruit, but if you don't, if it's something like that and you taste something that could throw someone else off track, can you eat that durian fruit and still hold to this one place? And if so, then you start out with just this much, wherever it would be, and you can sense it where you are, because you'll feel a drawing outward or a leaning in response to the arrival of that in your world. And then by surfing it, pretty soon you'll surf to where it doesn't matter what the presentations of the world, that you can always hold to and abide and keep to this better part, this one good thing. And you'll train in this way till pretty soon there's hardly a combination in the outer world that when it arrives could throw you out, because you've trained in so many different situations, so many different places, that that you've got everything dialed in pretty much. And maybe, I don't know how to say it, but you train this way long enough, and then it becomes easier and easier to hold to this place and not go outward. And so this is a skill. It's something that, there's something called sila, samadhi, and banya, right? Sila is it's like proper moral behavior. When someone screws up royally, morally, then what they'll do is there will be a presenting bit of information to which they respond and to which they go out, they bail. They sense that just this much here is no longer good enough for them. But if they go outward to that additional thing or that instead, then that's going to fulfill what this doesn't. So sila is like the moral code, proper moral behavior is embodied in this place. And there will be temptations, there will be things that arise coming from the outside, in response to which you simply don't lean. So this is the practice of sila, and the way you know when you're leaning, when you're not, that's the wisdom of the Buddha, that's the banya, because you found this middle way, a place, you can find it between any of the opposites as a good way to begin practicing, whether it be the place between right and left. That's the way I suggest you practice in the beginning. But once you get used to this, you can then turn this in other planes and other dimensions, so that you can find the place between too high and too little, between too much to the front, too much to the back. And you learn it with the physical body, but then later you realize, I can just move my mind to that sweet spot between the opposites. and almost like, perhaps like image stabilization on a camera, except you don't have to go, like if something presents on this side, you don't have to go extremely to this side to balance it out. You could, but basically you just simply know where the center place is, and you can put your mind on that. And then while there, around the outside is the world as it presents itself, just this much. And then you just put your mind on it, like when you breathe, when you watch the breath, and like that. You just don't look to the place that's too high or that's too low, because if they are, those places have entered into laboredness. They have entered into suffering, or are too much to the front, too much to the back, any other dimension. But you can actually put your mind on a place that is just like a place of refuge, whether it's the breath or, yeah, I like to use the breath. But there's that saying, no mud, no lotus. Well, you're sitting here, and around you is the mud. And because of this mud, because there's something to surf, something to abide in the midst of, therefore, you can use the assistance of this presenting external world to find and to hold to and to keep this better part, this one good thing, and to abide here. And so that's kind of how that works. And so that's the idea of no mud, no lotus. And the thing is, sometimes people that sit and meditate, I've been this way before. I used to have earplugs that I'd use all the time, because I had this rule that if it's too loud or if I didn't like the exact sounds around me, that meant I couldn't meditate, you know. So basically that amounted to living in fear of the world. And I've found that practicing in this way, by setting up this scale and finding and abiding and holding to this one good thing, it conquers fear. Because in the past there might have been a presenting arrival of a presentation that would cause you to bail from this place. But that arriving presentation has subcomponents to it. It has characteristics and stuff, and eventually you'll practice surfing the arrival of life to the point that various of those characteristics you've already surfed, and you've learned how to abide steadily in the face of that thing, whatever the new presentation would be. And pretty soon, and this is where life becomes fun, because then you'll actually find something that in the past might have caused you to be fearful or caused you to want to bail. But then as a sport, you start out balanced, and then with the arrival of new life around you, you just simply surf it. You hold to this one good thing. So yeah, that's true. There are a lot of people that they really require absolute silence in order to meditate. But can you see that they do live in fear of the world? Because if, I don't know, if a cicada's off to the side and it goes, and they're just trying to meditate, you know, it's like they were good for a while, but then the flippin' cicada ruined it, you know? Or it could be a smell or something else, you know. But that's the game of life. The game is that you learn about this mud and this lotus, and that it does present in the place where you practice, in the place of your devotion, in varying amounts on each side. And as a sport, you can literally find the middle way and put your mind on it. First, you use the physical body to surf it until you get so used to doing this that then you realize, no, man, I can I don't even have to have it between right and left. I can have it on other planes like this. And then when I breathe, like if my breath is going this way or something, there's still a sweet spot, a place that hasn't departed outward into suffering. And then the world does continue to change, but then you can just still surf and keep to that sweet spot by just putting your mind on it, no matter what your physical body is doing. So that's a pretty cool thing. But you do want to acquire the wisdom of the Buddha, which is that, as you sit there, you do have the arrival of the world and sense impressions to the outside. You can't practice in such a pristine environment that you're sitting there all, perfume and roses or whatever the expression is. You're all good to go, but then a flippin' butterfly goes past. You're thinking, man, I'm here meditating for world peace, and there's a butterfly that's sitting off to the side distracting me. You know what I mean? So basically, so what you do is you practice this, and then with the advent of that butterfly, how would you know not to be uprooted in that moment? Well, as a beginning place, as a beginning way to practice, gather 2 or more points. Hold to and abide in the place between opposites. And then the butterfly comes past, and as it does, you'll feel the just this much to the outside changing and modifying itself. And what I'm trying to say, brothers and sisters, is that that's something that can be surfed, whether it's visual or sounds, feelings, smells, any of the sense impressions. And that's a great way to practice, especially if you feel you're floating, like, I don't know where to start. I want to be all together. I want to sit and meditate, but I got to start someplace. So what do? You choose the 2 points. And the sitting bones are just one example, I mean, but sometimes I'll do K27. This is a really cool set of acupuncture points. No rule at flippin' all that it has to be acupuncture points, but I like these because putting the mind on them, I mean, I studied a bit of acupuncture, and there are health benefits that can be gained if coincidentally you choose acupuncture points. Or spleen 21, these are good ones too. So it conquers fear, so you can meditate with and not be in fear of the world. And that way you can go through life without bailing, without over-responding or under-responding. And if you do that, then brothers and sisters, you're balanced. And being balanced, you're free because you're always at the choice point. Being balanced, your feet are under you, you're all together, I'm trying to say. And you have the freedom to go to the front, the back, the left, the right, any direction, and to adapt, to turn on a dime, if you will. And that makes your life a lot better. Compared to what? Compared to you don't know how to set up the scale, and you're like a pinball in a pinball machine, just getting flipped and thrown all over the place, thinking, yeah, this is great, but now I got to meditate. And but you're living in fear of the world, So this is a fun way to do it, and just make sure I covered everything on this, yeah. But that also relates to the idea of no mud, no lotus, because the outer world, it's sense impressions, it's changing, and it certainly doesn't seem to be perfect. It's arriving in sudden sounds, sudden textures, sudden feelings, sudden sights. And how is that steady? Well, you're here seeking steadiness in the midst of a changing world. And the place you sit, this place of devotion, similar to what Jesus taught. He said when you put your hand to the plow, like a middle way in devotion, but if you turn back, if you turn away, then you're not fit for the kingdom of God. And there are all these people sitting around thinking, that's a harsh rule. Why did you come up with that? I mean, It's like Jesus is supposed to be their friend, right? And he's coming up with these rules that are so strict that, like, who in the world isn't going to turn back, you know? And but what I'm saying is, it wasn't some arbitrary rule that he just came up with off the top of his head to give people a hard time. No, it literally is that you hold to this middle way and you keep to it. And around you is just this much. And this is the sweet spot. This is the place of devotion that you find in the beginning. So if you want to learn more about that, just look at my other videos, because I gave a whole lot more information about how to set up this scale, and also how to put the mind on different places, on a place of refuge, even including how introverts, when they look away, when they redirect their eyes away from avoiding eye contact, how that itself is a place of refuge. And that changes, and they can literally use this key, this example, to still surf the sweet spot and be and have just this much around them in the world. Anyhow, folks, thanks a lot. I hope you like that. And I try to tell pretty much the same message, but I do different angles on it. But the technique is really, I find a lot of similarity between the teachings of Buddha and Christianity and stuff. Hey, would you like and subscribe, please, and support my channel in any way that you can. Much love. Bye.